The Millionaire, the Black Homeless Man, and the Elon Musk and Donald Trump story. New Haven was buzzing in a way it never had before. People stopped in the streets, whispering, pointing, eyes wide. Why? Because Elijah, the black homeless man with eyes sharp as a hawk's and words that cut deeper than any knife, was suddenly the center of a storm most didn't see coming. The man sleeping on cardboard boxes outside the library had just received a $1 million donation from none other than Elon Musk. Yeah, that Elon Musk, the billionaire tech genius stirring up headlines every other day. It was wild. One minute, Elijah was just there, wandering the cold streets, wrapped in a ragged coat, always mumbling something about life's cruel jokes and the truth behind the city's shine. Strangers leaned in, feeling that tight grip in their chests, like his words shook something deep inside. "We're broken," he'd say, voice low but fierce. "And no money fixes that." Then bam! Elon drops a fat check. Not a charity write-off. A big, bold, unexplainable act that rattled the whole town. Cameras swarmed. Reporters tripped over themselves. Even news from D.C. picked up the buzz, dragging Donald Trump's name into the mess, tweeting his own wild take on the mystery millionaire. What was going on? How did the city's underbelly and billionaire worlds collide so violently overnight? People in New Haven rallied around Elijah at first. Crowds grew where he stood. They listened. Hearts cracked open. Maybe this time, the system would hear the man shouting from the streets. He talked about wealth gaps, shattered dreams, and secrets the rich bury deep. But behind the cheers, dark clouds formed fast. The fancy suits in the city's tallest towers whispered in sharp tones. They were scared, afraid Elijah's sudden voice would rip their masks off. And so the attacks started. Quiet, cruel, precise. Smears, lies, quiet threats in shadowed parking garages. But here's the kicker no one on the streets knew. Elijah wasn't just some sharp-tongued drifter. No, he had been one of them, the wealthy, the powerful. A millionaire before the world tore him down. Deceit, betrayal. Old enemies locked him out, pushed him into this fog of invisibility where no one listens. Until Elon's money lit the fuse again. Now shadows from his past crept close, tangling in his every step. Elijah's hands trembled sometimes. Not with cold, no, with the weight of choices. If he told the truth, those precious few who still cared for him risked everything. But hiding meant swallowing the poison again. Pretending to be just a street ghost, the city wrote off. Meanwhile, Elon paced behind his screens, restless. This donation wasn't just charity, it was a gamble. Every headline, every angry call from rivals piled on like thunder in a storm. Was he ready to stand by Elijah? Or would the weight of these wealthy giants crush them both first? And then, just when it felt Elijah might pick a side, a figure slipped from the edge of a foggy alley. A whisper, dark and cold, slid through the night air, unraveling secrets Elijah had buried deep. Secrets that could wreck lives, shake foundations, topple the powerful. Who watches now? Who waits? And what will happen when the shadows stretch longer and the city holds its breath? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The figure from the alley stepped forward, cloaked in shadows. Elijah could barely see the outline at first, but as the dim streetlight flickered, familiarity crashed into him like a wave. It was Alex, his brother, the one he thought he lost in the chaos of betrayal and wealth. His heart raced, veins iced over with disbelief. "Why are you here, Alex?" Elijah's voice trembled, barely a whisper against the cold night air. "You vanished. Did you really think I wouldn't come?" Alex's eyes glinted with secrets, emotions swirling like dark clouds. A thin smile curled his lips, but there was no warmth. Only tension, thick and suffocating, hung between them. Elijah felt the pressure building in his chest, choking him. Memories flooded back. The two of them laughing together, sharing dreams in an upscale penthouse. Younger days when riches felt like freedom. Then came the fall, the ruthless hand of greed, tearing them apart. "What do you want?" Elijah demanded, each word cutting like glass. "I don't owe you anything." Alex stepped closer, the darkness enveloping him. "You owe me the truth, and you owe it to yourself." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Elijah stiffened, ready for more, but Alex's next words struck like lightning. "I know who you really are, Elijah, and I know what you did." The night fell silent. The whispering crowd swelled, their curiosity shifting to something darker, a collective intake of breath. A murmur of shocked voices. Faces twisted in confusion, disbelief. Elijah felt every gaze boring into him, probing for answers. A lump lodged in his throat. "Shut up!" he hissed at Alex, but fear danced in his eyes. "You don't know anything!" "Oh, but I do," Alex countered, voice low, menacing. "You are just a millionaire. You were a player in a game far more dangerous than you realize. The donation, the media, the chaos, it's all part of it. You've been dragged back into the spotlight, but who did you bring with you?" A cold flush swept through Elijah. The pieces began to shift, creating a chain reaction of memories. Boardroom meetings, secret deals, old faces lurking. "You're lying!" he shouted, but doubt clawed at him. Behind them, the crowd grew restless, whispers rising like a storm. "What's happening? Is he hiding something?" Each word doused Elijah with dread. Then, as if a spell broke, a loud crash erupted from nearby. A car door slamming, voices raised. A woman screamed. Elijah turned just in time to see a luxury vehicle skidding to a halt, police lights flashing. Officers poured out, faces grim, eyes scanning the crowd. "Is this about Elijah?" someone yelled. "They're after him!" Elijah's heart raced. Fear tightened its grip. The shadows were closing in on him now, riding the waves of the unfolding chaos. Alex stood firm, a stone wall behind Elijah's cracks, expressing nothing but determination. "Run!" Alex shouted, pushing Elijah back toward the chaos. You don't know what you're in. But where could he go? Dark secrets hung in the air, dangerous and heavy. The police were here. The past was here. And Elijah was caught in the threads of a web he thought he escaped. Could he bury the truth again? Or would this be the moment everything unraveled? As chaos erupted, Elijah felt all eyes on him, each heartbeat like a ticking clock, edging closer to a moment that may change everything. Elijah's heart raced as the shadow curved closer. He could feel the weight of its presence, the chill crawling up his spine. The whisper slid into his ear, cold and unsettling, curling around his thoughts like thick fog. He turned slowly, eyes squinting against the glare of the streetlights, searching for the source of the voice. Your past isn't just behind you, Elijah. It hissed. It's right here, watching. The crowd around him buzzed with energy, their faces illuminated like moths drawn to a flickering flame. Innocent, unaware, but cracks formed in the energy, an undercurrent of anxiety seeping through. People shifted uneasily, eyes darting. And then the figure stepped into the light. A woman, wild hair framing a face, taut with urgency. "Get away from him!" she shouted. "You have no idea what you're playing with!" Elijah's breath caught. He knew that voice well. It belonged to Leah, the one who had once loved him fiercely, before the world shifted and everything began to fall apart. Leah? Dot, he breathed, disbelief clinging to his words. A flicker of recognition sparked in her eyes, then faded as she stepped closer, the crowd parting like waves, some concerned, others drawn by the thrill of drama. "There's no time for niceties," she said, her voice trembling. "You have to listen. It's about who you really are." Elijah's heart thundered. "What do you mean?" Just then, a low rumble echoed through the street, cutting through their exchange. A black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb. Windows rolled down, revealing sharp suits and cold eyes, staring hungrily at the scene. Panic flared in the crowd. Voices rose. People pushed back. "Who are they?" someone asked. But the question was drowned out by a sudden, thunderous crash. The SUV's doors swung open, and figures poured out, hostile, muscles tense. "Get away from him!" one of the suited men screamed, pointing at Elijah. Fear rippled through the crowd. "Leave him alone!" Leah shouted, stepping between Elijah and the aggressors, defiant. "Do you even know what you're defending?" the man barked back, dismissing Leah as a nuisance. Elijah's head spun. His past was uncoiling before him. A twisted tapestry, woven with every betrayal he thought had gone unnoticed. "Leah, what's happening?" he cried, desperation clawing at him. But it was too late. The man stepped forward, and in one swift motion, he pulled out a file, waving it in the air like a flag of doom. "He owes more than money. He owes blood." The world slowed as those words sank in. Silence draped over the crowd. Shock blanketed the faces around him. Fear, confusion, disbelief. "Whose blood?" Elijah whispered, fear choking him. Leah looked stricken, her lips quivering. "You have no idea, Elijah. You were never just a millionaire. You were one of them." A collective gasp rose from the crowd. The suits took a step closer. Someone shouted, "Run!" But it felt like everything locked in place, a snapshot of impending chaos. Elijah's hands trembled, the cool night air now filled with suffocating heat. The truth, the secrets buried deep inside him, shattered like glass. He could feel it, the ground beneath him cracking, the air thick with betrayal. And then the world exploded in chaos as figures surged forward, shadows dancing in a flurry of motion. A shrill scream pierced the night. Who was telling the truth? Who was the real Elijah? With confusion and fear spinning inside him, Elijah was left standing at the edge of something both terrifying and electric. The shadows had come home, and the city's breath caught in its throat, waiting for the storm to break. Elijah stood frozen, the chaos raging around him. Fear clawed at his insides, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The man with the file, was he furious? Blood? It couldn't be real. The shadows from his past hadn't just followed him. They were here, alive, breathing down his neck. Leah's eyes widened, panic flashing like lightning. "Elijah, you need to listen, now!" Her voice cut through the din of the crowd, pulling his focus back. But there was no escaping the sharpness of the moment. Suddenly, a figure broke through the throng. Tall, imposing. Elijah squinted, but a couple of police officers shoved their way to the front, marking their territory. The air thickened with tension. One officer shouted into the darkness, "Everyone, stand back!" Elijah's breath caught. Did they know? Were they here for him? A rush of confusion twisted his thoughts. The crowd began to scatter, everybody wanting to part from the chaos, like water separating from oil. And then he saw it. A flicker of movement behind the luxury SUV. A woman, thin and frail, stepped into the light, her hands raised. "Wait, I can explain!" The crowd paused, whispers hushing into an anxious silence. It was Sarah, Elijah's long-lost love. He hadn't seen her in years. But the moment felt surreal, a strange thread connecting his heart to the girl he once knew. "What are you doing here?" His voice cracked, disbelief tumbling over his tongue. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Fear painted her face, but determination shone beneath. "You have to trust me." "Trust?" Elijah shot back, anger flaring. "You vanished. You left when things got rough." "Sarah, don't," Leah interjected, protecting Elijah like a shield. "You have no idea what you're dragging him into." But Sarah stepped forward, her eyes locked on Elijah. "You need to know the truth about your past, our past." Oh, man. "You weren't just any millionaire, Elijah. You were set up by your own family." Ooh, gasps rippled through the crowd. Confusion morphed into shock. Elijah's pulse quickened. "What? No, that can't be right." "It's true," she insisted, urgency building. "They turned on you, made you a scapegoat. The betrayal was planned. I didn't know until I..." But before she could finish, a deafening explosion cut through the night. A blinding flash erupted from the SUV. A sickening crunch as chaos scattered everyone. People screamed. The crowd surged forward, panic igniting flames of fear. Elijah fell back, Leah grabbing his arm to pull him away. "We need to go!" she yelled. But all he could see were shadows, morphing into chaos. The SUV had exploded into flames, sucking the air out of the night. Sirens wailed in the distance, creeping closer, but Elijah was still lost. His mind reeled. Family betrayal? A setup? Now an explosion? The threads of the truth were fraying fast. But the worst, a voice in his head whispered a terrifying thought. What if they were right? What if everything he knew was a lie? And through the smoke and chaos, Elijah caught one last glimpse of Sarah as she staggered back, her face twisting in horror. "Elijah," she shouted, hand outstretched. "You have to!" But before he could grasp her meaning, figures surged from behind the charred car, their faces cloaked in determined malice, eyes filled with a sinister ambition. "Get him!" one shouted, breaking through the panic, making their way toward Elijah. Elijah's breath hitched. This was the moment the world changed. Could he really outrun the truth? Was his life, crafted through pain and loss, just a facade crafted by forces much larger and darker than him? His heart raced, cold and heavy with options. Run, stand, face the shadows, or let them consume him. The crowd was a wild sea of fear and uncertainty, but he felt one thing clear. The real fight was only just beginning. Elijah stood frozen, heart racing, as the figure stepped forward from the shadows, a dark silhouette cloaked in fog. The air around felt electric, almost alive. He blinked hard, trying to place the familiar shape, and then recognition hit him like a punch in the gut. It was Jessica, his former business partner, not just any friend, but the one who betrayed him, the one who laid the groundwork for his downfall. "Surprised to see me?" she said, voice smooth but edged with ice. Every word seemed to slice the air, making it thicker, constricting Elijah's throat. The crowd buzzed behind him, old whispers hanging in the evening air. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" He managed to croak, but his voice felt weak, small against the tide that rolled in around him. "They'll come for you, you know." Her smile was a sliver of darkness in a wickedly bright world, a truth that sent ripples through the crowd. "But it won't matter. You don't realize what you've unleashed, what I've unleashed." Elijah's mind raced. She had always been the mastermind, the one who thrived in silver suits and polished shoes, while he had been the visionary, the heart, and here she was now, creeping back into his life just as the storm was brewing. "I don't want anything to do with you." "Well, it's a little late for that," she shot back, voice low but fast. "Elon's money quien te vas a huegangre, elija, y sabe muy bien que por eso tú lo sabes." Fuh, una bala con su cara pegada y pornota, a menudo en silencio, y el paso fue bien reticente, como el pasado te cae anun. "Keep your enemies close, right? You've always had a thing for drama." Then out of nowhere, a loud crash echoed from the library steps, shattering the moment like glass. Everyone turned, eyes wide, disbelief painted across their faces. A figure ran past, a man in a hoodie, his face obscured, clutching a backpack like it held the weight of the world. Screams erupted as he lunged into the street, barely dodging a car. "What the hell?" someone shouted. The buzz turned into chaos, people scrambling every which way. Elijah's heart slammed against his chest. "Get away from him, Jess!" he yelled, backing away. But the weight of her presence was heavier than a mountain. "No, listen to me," she hissed, desperation spilling from her eyes. "This isn't just about you anymore. You have to understand. There are people who want to erase you completely. You have something they need. Dot. Panic surged through Elijah. What did he have? The truth gripped him. He felt the shadows clawing at him, the ghosts of his past, secrets he thought were buried. What do you mean? What do you know? His voice rose, demanding, a familiar flame igniting inside him. It felt satisfying, yet terrifying. You couldn't possibly... But before she could respond, there was another sound, a sharp crack, loud and violent. The man in the hoodie collapsed, a dark stain growing on the pavement. A shot? Blood pooled out, the scene thickening with horror. Elijah's breath caught, his heart racing in time with the panic screams around them. Everything shifted like quicksand. The crowd erupted in fear, people scattering, leaving Elijah and Jessica standing on the edge of a nightmare. Elijah's world was spinning, confusion wrapped in dread. "You did this!" he shouted at Jessica, voice breaking. "You brought this!" "Not me," she replied softly, a glint in her eyes. "This was waiting for you. It always was." And just like that, the truth began to unravel, revealing something darker, lurking in the darkness. Elijah was caught in the crossfire of chaos, the city holding its breath, waiting for the next move. What was real? Who could he trust? The tangled web of friendship, betrayal, and secrets snapped taut, leaving everyone in deep uncertainty. The air felt thick with impending doom as sirens wailed nearby, growing louder. And one thing became clear. This was just the beginning, a dangerous game where the stakes were life and death. What shadows loomed, and who was truly pulling the strings? Elijah's heart raced, the pulse of fear throbbing in the chaos swelling around him. Elijah stood frozen as the shadow crept closer. That feeling, a pressure tightening around his chest. Did anyone else sense the shift in the air? It felt electric, unsettling. The whisper slid through the night like smoke, curling into his ear. Your past doesn't just vanish, Elijah. It's here, waiting. His heart raced. Memories clawed at his mind. Faces he thought he had buried deep resurfaced, nightmares flashing. He glanced around, seeing the crowd, the worried expressions, the hushed murmurs. "What's wrong?" someone asked, barely audible. Elijah's voice felt trapped, like a bird caged. "They'll find out." He shook his head, calling up what little strength remained. But the figure loomed larger, the dim light casting an ominous shadow. It was Kevin, his old business partner, the one who betrayed him. The betrayal that ripped his world apart. The crowd shifted, sensing the tension. "Is he all right?" echoed through anxious whispers. But Elijah couldn't look away. There was something off, something dangerous in Kevin's eyes. "I came to warn you," Kevin said, stepping forward, hands raised like a surrender, but eyes cold as steel. "The truth can't stay hidden, Elijah. You know that better than anyone." A voice from the back called out, "What truth?" Instinctively, a wave of panic surged through Elijah. How much had Kevin told? He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. "Don't be an idiot." "Oh." Kevin's tone sliced through the night, unforgiving. "They're onto you, and that donation? It's more than charity. It's a target painted on your back, and on mine too." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People exchanged nervous glances. Murmurs escalated. "What's he talking about?" someone shouted. A harsh truth clawed back to the surface, choking him. Elijah had fought to escape this life, to bury the name that had once meant wealth and power. He saw the faces of people he had known before the fall, their disappointment, their judgment. He could feel the weight of their scrutiny, as if they were spotlighting him. A woman cried out, "What did you do, Elijah?" And then the world tilted. A scream pierced the air, tearing through the tension. The crowd turned as a figure burst through the darkness, eyes wide, arms flailing. It was a young girl, maybe 10, running for her life. "Help! They're coming!" Elijah's heart lurched. This wasn't just a crisis anymore. This was chaos. People scattering like leaves in a storm. He rushed forward, desperation coursing through him. Could he save anyone? But just as he reached the little girl, gunshots rang out. The noise blasted through the air, sharp and furious. Time stopped. Silence swallowed the moment. Then panic erupted. People screamed, some ducked, others fled. Elijah felt frozen again. The girl looked up at him, terror in her eyes. A mom, sister, daughter. He saw for a split second who she could become. He stepped closer, wanting to shield her, but a shot rang closer, cutting into the crowd, closer now. His heart thundered, everything he feared crashing back. Was this all his fault? The demons from his past were here, reshaping his world again. "No," he shouted, but the words tangled in the chaos. What did Elijah do now? He toned as the dark figure of Kevin loomed behind him. "It's time, Elijah. Time to face what you've been running from." No one knew what lay ahead, but as shadows stretched long, confusion reigned. Who was the real enemy? Who could he trust? And when the dust settled, what kind of monster would he become? Elijah felt the cold weight of the night press down as he stared into the dark alley. Shadows danced, whispering secrets he thought only he carried. The figure that emerged had a familiar gait, masking intent with each slow, deliberate step. The world around Elijah constricted, his heart thumping like a prisoner wanting to break free. Who was this? Was it friend or foe? As the figure drew closer, moonlight filtered through the fog, illuminating a face Elijah never expected to see. The one man he once considered a brother before the walls came crashing down. Marcus. The betrayal that sent Elijah spinning into the streets had always been linked to Marcus's name. Memories flooded back, sharp and jagged. It hit like a slap across his face. "What are you doing here, Marcus?" Elijah's voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the tension of the moment. "You think you're untouchable now?" Marcus grinned, but there was no warmth in it, just ice. "You think $1 million means anything to guys like us?" Elijah could feel the crowd's curiosity growing, eyes pricking the air with questions. He felt another pulse, a tremor of hope mingling with dread. What did Marcus know that would turn this $1 million moment into a sinking ship? Suddenly, a slim figure slipped from the shadows. Another face Elijah recognized but wished he could forget. Cheryl, the lawyer who once held his fate in her hands, joined Marcus, eyes darting around like a hawk, searching for prey. "This isn't a game, Elijah. You're playing with fire." "Fire?" Elijah scoffed, bitter laughter erupting from him. "You too brought me into this madness. Your betrayal started all of this. Around them, murmurs rippled through the crowd. People leaned in, hungry for the drama. Confusion spread. Some knew of Elijah's past as a high-flying businessman. Most didn't. And they had no clue what demons hid behind the polished smile he wore back then. Remember the boardroom? The secrets we buried? Marcus took a step closer, and Elijah could see those icy eyes searching for something. The truth. The chink in his armor. Elon isn't the savior you think he is. He's using you. From the moment he saw a story in you, you became his puppet. Elijah felt the rush of those words. Was it true? The trust he extended to Elon shattered like glass. Chill ran down his spine, sealing him in a vice of anguish. Not this way, he breathed, each inhale heavy with the weight of the moment. Then, without warning, the city erupted in chaos. A loud bang, a car alarm blaring, cut through the night like a knife. People screamed, windows shattered. Everyone turned, heads whipping towards a cloud of smoke, rising ominously just a few blocks down. "Look!" a bystander shouted, pointing in horror. "What happened?" In the distance, flames leaped greedily at the night sky. A building, the very one where influential men and women connected and plotted. Elijah's heart raced. Could it be linked to what Marcus and Cheryl whispered about? Was this the strike from their forgotten past, unraveling everything again? And then he heard it. Chaotic shouts, distant sirens, and the rushed footsteps of frightened citizens. The narrative shifted. Elijah felt the chains of his past clanging loudly in this moment, and he realized perhaps this wasn't just about him anymore. Marcus and Cheryl stood silent, eyes wide, mouths agape, as the true horror of the night unfolded. Elijah took a step back. His breath caught in his throat. The question loomed large. Could the echoes from their buried secrets lead to catastrophe? What price would they pay o'er the threads of their past? The city held its breath, and chaos had just begun to ripple outward. Elijah felt the heat of the flames flicker against his skin, but the chill in his heart froze him in place. He turned back to Marcus and Cheryl, their eyes widening in shared dread. The world around them wasn't just collapsing, it was erupting into chaos. People screamed, scrambling like panicked ants as the fire danced higher. Was this the consequence of their past? Then, without warning, the ground shook beneath them. A rumble, deep and foreboding, sent a shockwave through the crowd. The pavement beneath Elijah cracked wide open, dust pluming into the air, like the breath of the earth itself. The crowd faltered, caught off guard by the sudden shift in reality. "What the?" Elijah gasped, hands gripping at the air, trying to steady himself. Bodies stumbled around him, urgency mixing with confusion. Pressure tore through the street, jagged and black, swallowing the light. From the chaos arose a figure, silhouetted and powerful. As the dust settled, the figure emerged clearly, eyes glinting with a strange intensity, a face etched by the shadows of past grievances. But it wasn't Marcus or Cheryl. It was someone Elijah never expected. His breath caught as recognition hit hard. "Dad?" The word escaped his lips before he could grasp the implications. His father, stood there, veiled in mystery and resentment, a ghost of the rich man who once seemed larger than life, but now wore the stains of life's missteps. A wave of mixed emotions rushed through him: fear, betrayal, and something like longing. What are you doing here?" The crowd buzzed with shock, whispers ricocheting through them. "Is that really him?" Someone murmured. "After all these years, I came for you, son," his father said, voice solemn, echoing through the chaos. "You're deeper into this than you know. We all are." Elijah could barely process the words, pieces of his background crashing together like broken glass. "But you!" He struggled to find a voice in the confusion, staring at the man who had pushed him away, the man whose absence shaped so much of his pain. "You left. You betrayed us." "Listen," his father's voice boomed, cutting through the smoke and noise. "It's not what you think. You don't know the whole story. We can choose this." A spark of desperation lit his eyes. "Your life is in danger. They're coming for you." Just as those words sank in, another shockwave rippled through the crowd, stronger this time. The ground trembled, and then an explosion. A roar of fire erupted nearby, sending debris flying. Elijah flinched, instinct kicking in as he grabbed for his father, fear flooding between them like a rushing river. "Get down!" he shouted, pulling his father low as glass shattered in a nearby storefront. As chaos swirled around them, confusion darkened every corner of Elijah's mind. This was more than just a fight for survival. It was another layer of the truth peeling back, revealing something deep, something ugly. His father was here, and the air crackled with electric secrets and old wounds. There was no escaping the past now. It was wrapping around them, constricting. In the melee, Elijah turned to Marcus and Cheryl, their faces twisted in shock as they too grasped the weight of this revelation. "You knew?" Elijah's voice trembled, aimed at Marcus. The tension escalated, shrouding them all. But then, a sharp crack pierced through the cacophony as the SUV that had been smoldering flared back to life, collapsing into a burning wreck, blocking their route. The air thickened with acrid smoke. "Go!" Elijah heard his father shout. "We have to get away from here!" But his eyes stayed fixed on Elijah, fear mingling with an urgency that hadn't existed before. As screams echoed and the ground heaved, Elijah's world spiraled into a tempest of confusion. Who was truly on his side? Who controlled the strings? And in this moment, where the walls crashed down, he felt the ground beneath him begin to shatter, just like the relationships he thought were solid. Could he trust his father, the man who had abandoned him? Or was this yet another layer of deceit? The question hung heavy as the chaos raged around them. The flicker of lights blurred, and doubt seeped into his bones. Would he uncover the truth, or was it already too late? A shadow loomed, closing in fast, and Elijah knew, deep down, this was just the beginning of a nightmare he couldn't escape. Elijah felt the intensity of the moment wash over him, the air thick with smoke and panic as he strained to process what was happening. The flames danced higher, casting long shadows that crept closer, invading the spaces between them. His father's eyes held a mixture of fear and determination. "We have to go, Elijah!" he shouted, fear lacing his voice. But Elijah felt something deeper pulling at him, tugging him back to a past he had tried so hard to escape. Marcus and Cheryl stood at the edge of the chaos, watching with wide eyes, their mouths hanging open in disbelief. "What does he mean? What does he know?" Marcus muttered, his voice barely cutting through the noise. Elijah shook his head, desperate to make sense of the words, but before he could respond, the ground beneath them trembled again. This time, it felt more violent, like the earth itself was cracking open, ready to swallow them whole. And then, out of nowhere, a ballistic sound erupted, shaking the very air around them. A blinding flash of light lit the night sky, and an electric shock wave surged through the crowd. Everyone froze. The SUV, still smoldering, suddenly explodes outward, the force of it propelling a wave of debris in every direction. People screamed, ducking and covering their heads. Elijah instinctively fell to the ground, arms wrapped tightly around his father, desperate to shield him from the chaos. As the dust settled, a heavy silence draped the aftermath. And through the haze, something unexpected emerged, a figure, silhouetted against the thick smoke. Tension pricked at Elijah's skin as recognition dawned, but it twisted his stomach into knots. The figure stepped closer, revealing an unfamiliar face that shattered everything he thought he knew. It was Sarah, the girl he'd lost years ago, but she looked different, somehow changed. Her eyes, once bright with hope, now shone with a haunted darkness. "What are you doing here?" Elijah's voice trembled, the words barely escaping as shock echoed in his chest. "Everything you thought you knew was wrong," she cried, her voice sharp with urgency, words spilling forth like a dam breaking. "I didn't want to. God, I thought they couldn't find me. But they're here. They've always been watching you, waiting for the right moment." "Who?" he shouted, panic flaring. Uncertainty gnawing at him. "What are you talking about?" Just then, from the shadows, figures emerged, more familiar faces, twisted with intent. Richard and Mark, old associates, faces that were supposed to be ghosts. Men he assumed were as far removed from his life as the riches he once had. They stepped forward too close, their expressions predatory. "Elijah," Richard sneered, voice dripping with malice. "Did you really think you could escape? Did you think we would let you disappear?" Fear surged through Elijah. "You're lying! You can't be here!" But Richard laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "You're not the only one with secrets hidden deep. All of us have blood on our hands. You're still part of this game, even if you think you're out." And just like that, the pieces began to fall into place. This wasn't just a reunion. This was a reckoning. The city held its breath, the air crackling with unspoken words, confusion shrouded in anger. With that, chaos erupted again. The ground shook one last time, a shake that rattled Elijah to his core. Then, a blinding burst of light engulfed them all. A flash unlike anything he had ever experienced. It swallowed the night, swallowing everything they had been, turning them into mere shadows of what they once were. As the light faded, Elijah blinked against the darkness that surrounded him. But something felt wrong. Pandemic fear crested, twisting around him like a serpent. He looked around. The faces were the same, yet somehow different, familiar, yet foreign. What had just happened? What truth was he standing in? Confusion clouded his mind, but one thing was certain. He wouldn't escape this fate unscathed. The enemies he thought he could number now felt infinite, and the cost of survival loomed large. What would he sacrifice for the truth? What price would he really pay? As shadows danced back into view, the frame of the scene lurched, the uncertainty thick enough to slice through. The city's breath hitched, a suspended moment of doubt, echoing as Elijah stood on the precipice of realization. The darkness closing in, the past clawing at him for one last confrontation. Elijah felt the tension crackle as the chaos erupted around them. Smoke billowed, obscuring the faces of those he once knew, each of them caught in a battle no one wanted to fight. His father's voice thundered through the chaos, urging him forward. "We have to get out now!" Marcus and Cheryl stood frozen, shock morphing into urgency. "This is madness!" Marcus shouted, trying to pull his own thoughts together as sirens wailed distantly. But Elijah's gaze locked onto his father, the man who had reemerged to warn him. What truths had been hidden all this time? Before Elijah could respond, Richard and Mark had closed in like wolves, hunger and betrayal dripping from their grins. "You can't hide from your past, Elijah," Richard sneered. "It'll eat you alive." The crowd murmured uneasily, their whispers rising and falling like waves. The crack of the earth trembled again. He could see the panic swell, people bumping into one another as they scrambled to escape. Everything felt surreal. Could he outrun the shadows? "I'm not afraid of you," Elijah shouted, the defiance pushing its way through his doubt. But then Sarah stepped forward. "Elijah, stop! This isn't a fight you can win." Her voice wavered, haunted with something dark. "They've played this game for too long. They'll do anything to keep you from the truth." "Enough of this," Cheryl snapped, eyes flaring with desperation. "We need to go, or we'll all end up just like him." She gestured toward the fallen figure, a man blurring in and out of consciousness as chaos enveloped him. Each moment stretched long, heavy with tension. "Run!" Marcus shouted, suddenly breaking from his daze. As Richard drew closer, a snake slithering through the grass. The crowd surged, panic morphing into chaos. Elijah and his father exchanged a look. The urgency was clear. Together, they tore through the crowd, dodging bodies and debris. The heat from the flames licked at their skin. Fear thundered in their chests, propelling them forward. "This way!" Elijah shouted, pointing toward an alleyway that might lead to freedom. As they dashed through the tight space, the roar of the explosion echoed behind them. Time warped. The world slowed. Then a voice rang out, sharp as glass. "Elijah!" It was Leah, her eyes wide and terrified, standing at the alley's entrance. Their past seemed to flicker between them, raw and palpable. "Elijah, you need to remember," Leah implored, reaching out as if grasping for a lifeline. "They can't keep your truth buried forever. You're more than a target." His heart thudded. He wanted to grasp her promise of hope. "I'll understand eventually," he gasped, pulling his father to safety as they emerged from the alley into the cool night air. But the echoes of their past were relentless. Every choice, every betrayal rushed back in vivid detail. "We're almost there," his father urged, his voice strained. Just when he thought they could breathe, they rounded the corner, only to face Richard standing boldly, arms crossed. Going somewhere? Richard's smirk twisted the air around them, a malicious swirl of impending doom. You think escaping means winning? It's just the beginning. Elijah felt the blood drain from his face. The truth, long buried, seemed a stone dragging him back. Enough! I refuse to let you control me anymore, he shouted, a surge of clarity coursing through him. The crowd stirred restlessly. The walls were closing in, but the flicker of hope sparked inside him. It was time to confront the shadows, to wrestle with the pain of the past, to reclaim his voice. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, quaking under the weight of their secrets. In that moment, to everyone watching, it was clear. Elijah wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Leah stepped beside him, eyes fierce. We will stand together. With a swift motion, Elijah directed the crowd, their collective energy igniting like a wildfire. He faced Richard. If you want a piece of me, come and take it. In that cacophony of sound and fury, something shifted. The past clashed with the present, the shadows against the light, igniting a battle long overdue. The city watched, holding its breath as Elijah stood on the brink of a truth that could shatter the chains that bound him. But just as the fight reached its fever pitch, everything went dark. A scream echoed, followed by the blaring of sirens, sweeping through the air like a tide. The city was alive, the tension thickening. And just like that, the curtain fell, leaving the questions hanging. Who would survive this revelation? What sacrifices would echo in the aftermath? And would Elijah finally stand as the man he was always meant to be? You have to subscribe now. Don't wait even a second longer. Smash that like button now to keep this story alive in our feed. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see where this story goes. It's time to show your support. Only true fans understand the importance. Your engagement shapes the future of the stories we tell.